Welcome back to Politics Tonight. Thanks a lot for staying with us. Now, I'm being joined by the candidate of a Accord Party in the 2023 presidential election, Professor Christopher Imumolen, for discussion on post-election litigations and Nigeria's democracy. Thank you so much for joining us, Prof.
Yeah, thank you for having me on your show. Thank you.
Right. About 6 months after the 2023 general election, but the outcomes are still being contested. What does this say about elections in the country?
Well, it's becoming more interesting. You know, I think Nigeria as a country has evolved to becoming a country that now understands more about politics. And we have grown from 1999 to Nigerians. I'm talking about Nigerians now who now understand the complexity of politics and democracy as it were. So everything we see playing out after the election, during the election and before the election, to me, it's an improvement from where we were. The truth is Nigeria as a country has evolved. We have moved at least a step further from where we were. And we should appreciate God for that. So whatsoever is happening after the election, for me, it's also a good one, although it must be properly managed by every party involved so that we all know that our primary aim is our country. You know, we must, I always say this, put ahead of us the interest of the country ahead of our personal interest. For us, we've gone through the election. I'm talking about myself and the party. And we are looking forward to a better country. We are looking forward to a more harmonized, developed, peaceful country. We are looking forward to ensuring that in any way we can engage, support the government to building a lasting economy. You know, so that is what we presently stand for.
Right. So, Prof, if I'm correct, you're on the side of those who have said this only justifies the fact that our democracy has really grown. Is that it?
Of course, it has grown. We now have so many interests in our political environment now. You can see what is happening. Not just from the presidency, even down to states. You can see the justice system. We can see the electoral committees, tribunal committees all over the states. People are beginning to know more and know what it takes and how to go through tribunal and cases. We saw what happened in the presidential election tribunal judgment that just had. So a lot of things are involving, and yes, a lot of persons say the pressure might be higher, it might be more tense, but it's part of the democracy. When we have democracy is, of course, government for the people and for everyone to be involved. And we begin to see that inclusivity. We begin to see that a lot of people now want to know how the government is going to move forward, even if they are not a winning party. We said this in our party, for example, in Accord, that, okay, the election is over. What is the next thing for us to do? Normally, this would not happen in 1999. You can see a lot of parties are beginning to come forward together. So, okay, how can we support the government? How can we continue our cases even in tribunal? So many. So these activities we have seen, it's good for democracy, it's good for the people of Nigeria, and it's going to bet more development for our country.
Right. But looking at the last 5 general elections that have been conducted in the country, a total of 3,959 petitions were filed either by candidates or political parties. And just recently, the Chief Justice of Nigeria lamented that the courts are overwhelmed by election litigations. How long do you think this may continue?
It's a lot of, what's it called? Like I said, the interest of the people is becoming more cognizant when it comes to politics. And we begin to appeal to a lot of politicians that, like I said, the interest of the country should come first. No election anywhere in the world can be perfect. I know it's painful when, even in exams, when people write exams in school, People protest for exam scores and say, oh, I'm not sure this is what I score. But at the end of the day, it's about the development of the country. The justice system is overwhelmed. The numbers of election petitions is increasingly, but to determine when it's going to end is actually a call for everybody who had participated in the last election to ensure that we look towards supporting what we already have. How do we build our country? Because it's just about 4 years. We can go on and on, going to court, talking about, oh, I'm supposed to be the winner. And what we do is we have lost time. We'll be distracting those who had won, even if it might be that painful. For us, we know election is a sport. You either win or you lose. And if you lose, what do? You support those who have won to build a better nation. So a call for candidates who are out there, who are pained that they are supposed to be the winners because of one or two things. Let us see towards working together with the government that we have from state, local government, so that we can build a better country for ourselves, for our children, and for our born children. That is where I stand.
Right, but some lawyers argue that most of these petitions lack substance and shouldn't be entertained by judges. Do you have a contrary opinion?
I would not. Some do because everybody knows that there were some irregularities in the election process. And there's nowhere in the world, everywhere in the world, no election is perfect. So when there are irregularities, candidates want to take advantage of those irregularities to throw up a case. But of course, even a candidate that is trying to throw up a case, you also have a case of which can be thrown against you. So let's go to the court and prove. So many of these cases lack substance, and many also do have substance in them because of how imperfect the electoral process went. However, like I would always say, be it as it may, the interest of our country should lie. So we must begin to have the heart that election has come and gone. What lies ahead of us is a better country. What lies ahead of us is to build our country and quickly get out of so many challenges that we have. So I believe I'm not here to speak for anyone. I'm just speaking my conscience. And that is one of the propositions we had while going into politics. What happens even if we lose, is to support and ensure that Nigeria win at the end of the day.
Right. So if this is the case, we've seen outcomes of various election petitions tribunal with petitioners unable to prove their cases. Who do we blame for this, lawyers or politicians?
You can't, the justice system itself, the justice system itself has a lot of role to play in ensuring that there are evidence, there are data. INEC by itself has a lot of role to play to ensure that there are evidence, there are data. The candidate by themselves, funding and, election has a lot of factors, multi-factors. For example, getting polling unit agents who are supposed to send data to a particular collation centers, privately observation centers for candidates. And this might not be, so when you look at all these factors, you see that when candidates present the evidence towards, the tribunal cases, you get to see that some of them might be jettisoned out of lack of merit. Some, just like the case of the Plateau State, where the APC candidate, one of his cases was thrown out because one of the reasons is some of the things you are talking about are party issues, they are pre-election issues. And one of the things we must also know is that the Presidential Election Tribunal judgment that happened has set a precedence for every other tribunal cases we are going to have in the states. So whatsoever has emanated from that cases will become the standard which with every other cases might follow. So candidates who still insist that, okay, we're still going to push more, we're still going to, even if we have not won in this particular, we're going to take it to a higher level to prove our case, should already know where their case would lie. So in the case of blaming who, it's a multifaceted challenge in our economy. We're talking about the INEC itself, talking about the judiciary, talking about the candidates who should be able to prove it. But like I always say, and I will continue to say it, let us begin to look at Nigeria. We have a lot of challenge, which we must challenge that is collective, challenge that which can only be solved by allowing those who had won, no matter the party, sit down and ensure that they move the economy forward. What we can do as candidates is to look at them, begin to advise them, if possible, criticize them, to ensure that they do the right thing and we move our country forward.
Right. So, Prof, to add to that, I mean, judges say these petitioners cannot provide enough witnesses and evidence to back allegations of malpractices. So, do you think losers are only eager to approach the court, as some people allege?
Our democracy is still evolving, and there's a lot of things that politicians will begin to know as we proceed, we move on. Many politicians sometimes are advised by their lawyer. They have lawyers who advise them on how to go about this. And like you, the question you have asked is the right question, where candidates are enthusiastic, they have that enthusiasm to move into the court without actually filing up their cases properly to be able to present a proper case. So you end up seeing that some of these cases are jettisoned because of lack of merit. And again, the judicial system at this time also must stand up. I am not saying that we should throw up a legal case because we want to move a country. And what I'm saying is this: let us, as candidates who have run for the election, who did not win, begin to allow those who have won to have space, enough space to govern the people, enough space to do the right thing. We just have some few months to the end of this year. We have less than 3 years to end the 4 years administration. So less than 4 years to end the 4 years administration. Time is going. So back to your question, many candidates may not have the right advice because going to court to file a petition has a lot to do with advice from your legal team, and it also depends on the credibility, the experiences of the legal team that has been engaged to do that job for them.
Right. So let's talk about the Kano Governorship Election Petitions Tribunal, which overturned victory of Governor Yusuf over invalid ballot papers. Who do we blame for this?
I don't really, because we look at the case, the INEC, what the court has, the petition tribunal has verdict they've given, and why have they given it? If there are what's called invalid ballot, which was seen. So where was this ballot gotten from? So where were these ballots kept? These are processes that, as we begin to move on in our election in Nigeria, we begin to, we live in a country where there's a lot of abnormalities. People can use what they have to get what they have, even if it's legally or not legally. So where did they get this ballot from? So I think there's need, beyond just the judgment, to further investigate where all this emanates from. Where are the ballots kept? Is it kept in the CBN? Is it kept in police? Where? And how was it printed? No. So we're talking about who to blame. The blame is not just about looking at the candidates or the. It's a systemic. What's it called? I don't want to use the word failure, but it's a systemic thing that has to do with a lot of chain reaction. So we need to blame the system. We need to blame those who are engaged in the system, which includes the regulators, which includes the security, which includes those who ballots were kept, which includes even the people who are supposed to be protectors of every other person. I mean, I'm talking about the general citizens of Nigeria. So once we begin to get this right, we will not just be talking about who to blame, we're talking about what is the root cause of the abnormalities and how do we find a permanent solution to it.
All right. But in Enugu State, the tribunal upheld the election of Governor Mbah, ruling that NYSC certificate has no basis in the election. I would like to have your reaction to that as well.
The tribunal has, where they read from, the Constitution has a lot of dimensions through which you can read from. We believe as graduates of, as Nigerians who had gone through the university, that it becomes compulsory that you serve your country through the NYSC scheme, and that also becomes an eligibility for you to work with federal parastators to vie for political office. And if the INEC, the tribunal says that is not a case, is not a case, then I think lawyers, people who are lawyers, I'm not a lawyer, and we are beginning to see different dimension of what's it called, judgment coming up. judgment that we will be looking at this direction, and we look at it, and what we are getting is from another direction. We cannot here to say, oh, the verdict of the tribunal is wrong, but it is for us to look at these cases and study it more and make it a further template for future election.
Right. So, Prof, for better perspective, and I'd like you to be very detailed, how will you describe the position of INEC in all of these litigations?
Okay. INEC is actually the prime mover for the election. They are the center, they are in the center of the game. They provide the logistics, they provide the template to which every candidate will run for the election. And it's quite disheartening that everybody would blame INEC. I'm not here to also speak for them. But remember, we already have a system in Nigeria that is very hard for things to work, no matter how much you budget. We have people in Nigeria who are ready to ensure that nothing works. You might not be everywhere. We run an analog economy. Even if you're trying to infuse a digital input into what is analog, it might be hard for you to synchronize. So the system by itself might not actually permit a perfect operation. That is just the truth. INEC have a lot of blame. I have a lot of fault in terms of so many things. People talk about not transmitting the results, as to what were promised by them. Those are major flaws, believe me, from what we observed. I was a candidate. I saw how the election went. We were not happy with so many things. But we also saw people who were not even members of INEC, who were on ground, also doing what they ought not to do. And these are it's more like the tradition of Nigerian election. So trying to just put all the blames to INEC, I think it might not be fair. We already have a system that every business, even if you're a business owner in Nigeria, by the time you do your business in Nigeria, you understand what I'm saying. Let alone trying to run an election for the population of Nigeria, 36 plus FCT in 774 local governments, there would always be something wrong. But the issue of not transmitting the election, we all blame the INEC, and we believe that in subsequent election, things should get better.
So talking about subsequent elections, for the purpose of the off-cycle elections in November, where does INEC needs to tighten its belt?
Number one, in the distribution of the ballots, ballot paper by itself is sensitive material. It must be treated sensitive. Number two is voters' education. Many of the voters in Nigeria do not have the proper education. INEC needs to increase its sensitivity, its sensitization of election in those states. We have in Kogi, we have in Imo. By now, we should be seeing education of the populace. We should be letting them know what it takes to vote and how to vote. We have these issues happening here and there. Two, and number three, logistics is key. Sincerity of INEC staff. The staffs of INEC need to be trained all over again. If INEC is going to engage in ad hoc staff, there should be enough time for them to have training. We've seen ad hoc staff come to polling units, and yet they don't know how to operate this gadget. 2 or 3 days training is not enough for them. And most importantly, INEC must lead a roadmap to the people. They must be very, very sincere about this. Whatsoever they have said or tell the people should be what we stand. If there will be need for any change, because in any process, of course, there might be situations might arise that might need for a slight change. There should be proper communication. There should be proper PR, public relations to the people. Sensitize them, and most important, like I said, sincerity. The system must be checked. The digital system. If INEC is going to be using the beavers operation must be communicated. How it's going to work. There must be proper on time. There must be on time communication to the people, so that we can hold INEC responsible of what they have said and compare it to what has happened in the election.
All right. So we've seen some innovation in court proceedings like live telecast and virtual delivery of judgments. How do you think these will benefit the system?
Sorry, I didn't get that. Sorry.
So recently, we've seen some innovation in court proceedings like live telecast and virtual delivery of judgments. How do you think these will benefit the system?
It will, these are conditional situations that warrant, for example, the Kano State judgment. I don't think anyone would have actually want the judgment to be delivered physically because of security issues. We know Kano State, we know the movement, we know the two parties, we know how it is. I think it's the world is becoming digital. So if Nigeria justice system and judicial system is now employing that to solve or cushion effects or predetermined effect that might emanate, why? It's fine. It's a welcome development. We saw where the PC was transmitted live on various stations. We now see innovation coming in. It's a welcome development that we now see this happen. But like I would always say, and I'll keep repeating myself, let us face our country. I think we have gotten to a time now. If we are through with the election in February, this is August, as in this September. We need to start facing the economy and start working with those who are already on board, encourage them, support them, advise them, if possible, criticize them in possible ways just to ensure that we have a better country.